All right, welcome back to Talking Shop, the Old Testament edition, a project of 1517. We are working on Proper 16, that is Isaiah chapter 66, verses 18 through 23. This year it is the 11th Sunday after Pentecost. Bob, would you give us the 10-second pitch of why we should preach the Old Testament this week?
It's the end of Isaiah, but it's the beginning of a great promise that's only fulfilled in Jesus, that God would raise up something amidst all the nations to which they would be drawn to his great salvation. The remnant people come back. All peoples come to find salvation in Yahweh. And of course, we know that in the person of Jesus. And so there's some clever ways that you can get at this, and we hope that you enjoy what we put together.
All right, let's get after it.
In every way, yet I'm still welcome in the arms of the King.
All right, welcome back. We are in Isaiah chapter 66. Bob, would you give us some context around Isaiah 66 to help us get some context of where we're at in Isaiah?
Very end of the book of Isaiah, last verses. Really, this reading is sandwiched between a really big contrast in verse 17 and verse 24, between the life of those who are renewed and saved and restored by Yahweh and the life of the wicked who will be utterly destroyed. And so we kind of skip the bad parts and we kind of just stick to the good part for this. It's a nice way to finish out the book, but there really is a contrast between those who are saved and those who are in despair. And so, praise be to the Lord that he has placed something right in the middle of the whole world, so that if you are one of those people on the outside, you could see it and you could go to it and you could hear a message of salvation, which is given through his suffering servant, who we know is Jesus.
Good. Let's get into the text, starting at verse 18. For I know their works and their thoughts, and the time is coming to gather all nations and tongues. And they shall come and shall see my glory, and I will set a sign among them. And from them I will send survivors to the nations, to Tarshish, Pul, and Lud, who draw the bow, to Tubal and Javan, to the coastlands afar off, that have not heard my fame or seen my glory. And they shall declare my glory among the nations. And they shall bring all your brothers from all the nations as an offering to the Lord, on horses and in chariots and in litters, and on mules and dromedaries, to my holy mountain Jerusalem, says the Lord. Just as the Israelites bring their grain offering in a clean vessel to the house of the Lord, and some of them also I will take for priests and Levites, says the Lord.
This is great. Yeah. Didn't grow up in the church, but when I grew up, it was always obvious to me when we'd go into a town where a church was, because they always had a steeple.
Yeah.
And there's always a cross at the top of it. It was like every other building was, well, I grew up in a rural area, so it wasn't a big city. I suppose in cities this might not happen as often, or it happens occasionally as you turn down a street and there it is. But growing up in a rural area, like the tallest, most recognizable building in the town was the one with the funny T shape at the top, And I kind of feel like that's what Yahweh is doing. He's putting amidst all peoples this sign by which people will say, if you go there, something different is happening there. And it's not like the world in verses 17 and verse 24, which is a really bummer way to end the entire book, but that's fine. The worm doesn't die and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. And even in movies, you have that classic pan-in shot. And there's always something about when you pan in and there is no church. Everything just seems flat.
Yeah.
And, and rural, you know what I mean? But I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Like a beacon.
Yeah.
Like a lighthouse.
Yeah.
Like, hey, come here. There's safety here.
Yeah, this is where it is. Yeah.
It's the rally point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put up this beacon. I'm going to put up this rally point, and all the people from all the nations and all the tongues are all going to come here, and they're all going to sing my glory.
Yeah, I hear the message, but it's so much more than just the building of it, that he sets a sign that's visible. But I think of Peter's preaching in Acts 2:22 to 26, I think it is, where Peter's contention is that God has set a sign amidst all the nations, because that's all the nations that gather for Pentecost. And the sign that he has placed is the death and resurrection of Jesus. So it's not just like a steeple and a cross, it's this message that's gone out in all the world. Jesus is the sign, the standard.
It's so interesting to see this proclaimed and fulfilled
Yeah.
in the day of Pentecost.
Yeah.
So you got the survivors
Yeah.
that the Lord has sent to all these places.
Yeah.
And then they come back.
Yeah.
And guess what they go back with? They go back, and then they're actually bringing Gentiles home. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
They're gathered and then they're scattered.
Gathered and scattered.
And then gathered again.
Yeah.
All gathered and lightened.
Right.
I'm thinking of the birth of Jesus. He set this sign, right? And that's, so from his birth to his death to his resurrection, there's always this visible way in which God signals and says, hey, and who gathers at Jesus' birth? The kings from the east, if you're willing to accept that. And that's the suffering servant in Isaiah 11, 10 through 12, right? That's the sign by which God will draw all nations to himself. Yeah.
Is it too big of a leap, too big of a jump to have a layers of meaning and say, yes, Pentecost, but also ultimately Revelation 7?
Well, yeah, Jesus says this himself, I think, in Matthew 24:30, there will be a sign of the Son of Man, right? And so, it telescopes. And when you're preaching the Old Testament, you got to telescope.
Yep.
You can't do that, point for point. So it's a word that's true for Isaiah and the suffering servant, Isaiah 11.
Right.
It's a word that's true when he raises up that sign at Jesus' birth, when it lift high the cross,
Right.
lift high the message of the resurrection, Pentecost, Acts chapter 2, Revelation, which Jesus confirms by his own word in Matthew 24:30. So
Right. And we'll get there in the next verses, right?
Yeah.
Which is in part why I was thinking of making that jump in verse 22. For as the new heavens and the new earth that I make shall remain before me, says the Lord, so shall your offspring and your name remain. From new moon to new moon and from Sabbath to Sabbath, all flesh shall come and worship before me, declares the Lord.
yeah,
And so, yes, Pentecost,
Yes.
right? Yes, the birth, death, resurrection of Jesus being the sign that gathers all nations,
Yeah.
right? But then ultimately, Revelation 7
Yeah.
of all of the nations in this new heavens and the new earth,
Yeah.
right? So, yes, that is a sign, but I'm also thinking of the new city, Jerusalem, coming down, right? Not city that we built,
Yeah.
city that God built.
yeah,
That all the nations gather there in that city
yeah.
and are singing God's praises for all of eternity. And so, like, what once has been broken and scattered
Yeah.
is once again brought together again and reunited and reconnected.
I think that's totally in line with what Peter's doing in Acts chapter 2, because he quotes, what is it, Joel? He quotes Joel and saying, in the last times. And so what he's proclaiming is kind of a,
And I will pour out my spirit on, like Isaiah says,
Yep.
all flesh.
all flesh. Yeah, that's good. Which is a word that we won't see realized until Revelation, until the city of God, to all these things. So
Right.
I think you're
The
tracking.
fulfillment of this is still playing out in the mission of the church, the
Right.
life of the church.
Like we were talking about last week, or was it the week before, that we have the same faith as the patriarchs.
Yes.
Right? And so we just look backward in time to the death and resurrection of Jesus and the fulfillment of the promise. They just looked forward in time to the fulfillment of that promise.
Yeah.
And we look forward in time to the last day.
Yeah, that's
So we have these promises that this is what's going to happen. And so, like the patriarchs are looking forward in time, we also have this aspect of looking forward in time to the last day, to the resurrection of all the dead, to the reunion of all of God's people around the throne and the Lamb, and we're all singing together. And there's going to be a really good steak.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that was 2 weeks ago when we were talking about Abraham. And so that's a nice way to tie it all together. Yeah, that's good. Good.
It's good stuff.
Anything else?
Is that it?
I don't know. Is that it?
It's not a super long text,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of great jumping off points there, depending on. I think
There's plenty to do.
laid out a lot of options.
Other thoughts on how to preach this, other than the last day and the all of the sad things coming untrue? Then ways to get at the gospel, other than death, resurrection of Jesus, and Pentecost being the fulfillment of this.
If you're going to do telescoping, I would suggest the epic structure, which is that dynamic structure. You start in the center of the action, so you'd probably start with Peter.
Yeah.
And then you'd, rewind to Isaiah, and then kind of take a running start at it, point out all the places where God has raised up, and maybe hit some of that John stuff, where when the Son of Man is lifted up, he'll draw all people to himself. Get back to Acts chapter 2, and then unveil that curious detail that that Peter's talking about the end times.
Yeah.
Because of Revelation 21, 2 through 4, maybe Isaiah 4, 2, just folding all those things together, that eschatological realization. So yeah, I think that'd be a good structure.
Good.
Yep.
Anything else? All right, then I think that does it for this week. Thanks for watching. If you would please subscribe on YouTube, share this video with another preacher. Go check out all of the great resources over at 1517.org/craftofpreaching, and God bless your preaching.